yeah. No one is you, I step out of you, keep being you, no matter what you face.
Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Sallyson. So for the past 3 weeks, I've been talking about the leadership series. This week, I'm at Santan. So Santan is a UNESCO registered site, one of the Catholic churches that was actually built by Gustave Eiffel. So the guy that built the Eiffel Tower in France. And it's a lovely location. The background is beautiful. Weather is awesome. I was here with my partner for a retreat, trying to get inspiration and trying to build the right energy in order to be able to achieve my dreams, goals, and passion. It's always important, right? Self-edification, self-gratification, and of course, being in tune with our spirit is very important, because I believe we are spirit being having a physical experience. But that is a topic for another day. So today, this is the 4th episode of my leadership series. And last week I spoke about how to keep your team motivated, and I spoke about bilateral communication. Today I'm building on the topic of bilateral communication, and the main topic is how to effectively communicate. I believe that the point of communication is really underestimated in an organization, in teams, amongst people, even amongst family. And it's very important that we identify and minimize as much as possible the barriers for effective communication. So let's get right to it. So today I'm just gonna give you, from my point of view, the 3 key points that is vital for effective communication. As I said, communication is such a wide spectrum, and I would not have enough time to go in details on all the key areas and key points of communication. And that's why I'm just going to focus on 3 key points. Now, the thing is that communication is a two-way street. Means there is someone that is sending out the information or a message. There is a receptor of the message, someone who needs to receive this message and interpret it. And of course, at the end of the day, the key objective of communication is to make sure that whoever is transmitting the communication is doing it in the right way, and whoever is receiving it understands it and is executing whatever action is needed. So the 3 points for effective communication. The first one is for the one that is communicating. So on these two-way streets, the communicator, the one giving out the message, the output, must make sure that the message is clear and concise. That's the first point. What do I mean by clear and concise communication? Now, there are a lot of barriers to communication, and the one that is transmitting the message, information, or output needs to, as much as possible, reduce these barriers by identifying who the audience is. When you know who your audience is, you can make sure that your communication is clear and well understood. So identifying your audience means knowing what is their age group, what is their professional background, what is their specification, what is their level of understanding, and what kind of information you are transmitting to them. It is pointless transmitting a form of information or message in English to a group of people who only understand French, Portuguese, Spanish, Chinese, Arabic, or Latin, because the message would not be understood because of the language barrier. It is pointless talking about business to a child who is 3 years old using all the terminologies of business that you would use to a senior manager or to your colleagues. So the audience is very important in order to make sure that your message is well understood by the one receiving. Now, clear and concise message means that you need to identify what you seek to communicate. You need to identify how you're going to communicate. Is it going to be a written form of communication? Is it going to be a verbal form of communication? Is it going to be visual form of communication? You need to consider the when you're going to send out that message, and also when you expect feedback. So this needs to be clear. And of course, you need to also consider why you're sending out that message. Whatever you are communicating or transmitting has to have a reason, and based on that, it would define what feedback or result you get for your communication. So clear communication means identifying your audience, empathizing with your audience, making sure that you reduce as much as possible the barriers that can hinder communication, being languages, avoid a lot of abbreviations, make sure that your form of message or communication is in context with the level of understanding of the person that you're communicating with, and make sure it is concise. So a simple example, if I am sending a message to my team member and I decide that it's a written message, to make sure that I reduce the barrier of misinterpretation or misunderstanding, I would say, dear XYZ, as per our discussion 2 weeks ago, please send me the financial reports to send to the client XYZ. Make sure that you include the details of how much they need to XYZ, and please ensure that this report is sent to me before end of business Tuesday. Now, this message is clear because I have clearly highlighted when I expect the feedback from my colleague, why I'm sending this information, or what I need the report for, what report I need, and it's clearly addressed to someone, my targeted audience. Now, these are key points that sometimes we miss in an organization or in our organization that create a lot of frustration. So clear and concise communication is important. The second point is the one that is receiving the information. Now, when you are the receptor of the information, it is also important to make sure that you are listening, because sometimes we just hear, meaning the information comes here and it goes out. We see it, but we don't understand. We don't pay attention to the context and the content that is being given to us. And because of that, there is a misunderstanding or misinterpretation of the information. Listening is very important when you are the other end of the information, in order to also reduce the barriers to communication and to correctly interpret the information and to make sure you understand what is being communicated. So for effective listening, you need to all equally empathize with the one that is sending out the message, meaning identifying who is communicating and in what context are they communicating. Make sure that you ask follow-up questions to be sure that you are following the key message that is being transmitted. Echo out once in a while what is being communicated, just to make sure that the person that is communicating can affirm whether you are understanding what is being communicated, and also reduce the noise around you. Make sure that you are not mentally distracted, focusing on other things. Just focus on what the message the communicator is giving to you, and try as much as possible to understand. As I said, communication is a two-way street, meaning the one giving out the message but the one listening, and both parties need to play their part to ensure that communication is effective and efficient. And the last point is feedback. So the one communicating needs to ask for feedback from the one he or she is communicating to make sure that they are understanding what you're communicating and the message is clear. And the one that is also listening needs to give feedback to assure the one communicating that he is understanding and getting the message, to ensure that the barriers of effective communication is reduced. And one key point of feedback is we need to make sure that it is objective and it's constructive. The best way to effectively give feedback is to go with a sandwich approach. The sandwich approach means that you go with the positive feedback, and then you put in your constructive or developmental input, and then you end with another positive input. This kind of gives that cushion to make sure that whoever you are giving the feedback to doesn't get on the defensive side, but really understands that this feedback is to either improve the communication or to reduce the barrier of communication. So that's all, folks. I hope that the message is clear. For effective communication, the one communicating must make sure message is clear and concise. Identify your audience. Avoid as much as possible abbreviations and big phrases that will not be understood by your audience. Make sure that they understand the what, the why, the how, and why you're communicating. For the one listening, make sure that you focus on understanding what is being communicated by echoing out what is being communicated to you, by asking questions, and by making sure that you are avoiding and reducing as much as possible disruptions and noise around you by focusing on the one communicating the message and the content that is being communicated. And the last point, which is the key point of the two-way street, is making sure that the one communicating is asking for feedback to make sure that the recipient of the information or message understands, and the one that is receiving the message is also giving feedback to make sure that he clearly understands and there isn't a miscommunication. And the last point, just to wrap this up, is that you also always need to make sure that the mode of communication is clear. As I said, there is the written, the verbal, and the visual communication. So make sure that there is as minimal as possible, less contradiction between what is verbally said or written and what is visually seen. Make sure there is that correlation to avoid misinterpretation and misunderstanding in the information that is being communicated. That's all for today. I hope this has been useful to you. Please don't forget to like, follow, share, and subscribe, and share these videos with others so that we can reach out to more people and help improve our society, our organizations, our companies, and the people around us. So for next week, I'm going to talk about the key challenges that most employees face in their organizations or in their company. Now, this is kind of in line with the leadership and personal development side of my trainings, and I believe that it's something that can help a lot of employees to understand things from the manager's point of view, and managers to understand things from the employee's point of view also. So stay tuned for next week's video, and without much ado, I say Biddy bam, your girl Sallyson, I'm out.
No one is you, that's the power of you. Keep being you, believe Lord I miss. I remember how I used to sleep on the floor.